This is Newswatch with Isabella Guillem.
The headlines tonight. Devil's Tower Road closed today following a large fire. The government will not take part in dialogue under Jack Straw's Westminster Declaration. And the opposition calls on the people not to support the request made by the governor in his recent statement. Good evening. Residents of Devil's Tower Road were evacuated earlier today following a large fire which broke out this morning in the area. The blaze, which originated at Metal Rock scrapyard, seems to have started from sparks produced by workmen working on a car there. Firefighters from both the City Fire Brigade and the Defence Fire Service were deployed.
The fire started around 11:30 this morning, producing large flames and thick, dark smoke, which could be seen from the city centre. Around 30 firemen from both the City Fire Brigade and the Defence Fire Service were deployed to the area, with 7 operational appliances at the scene to fight the blaze.
We've initially deployed 2 appliances when the fire was first reported to us. This was subsequently made up by another pump, and we've got further 4th pumping appliance here at the scene of the incident. We have also received assistance from the Defence Fire Service. We have provided 2 of the large foam vehicles and 1 of the tactical foam units.
Well, a lot of smoke emanating from this fire, but just how toxic have the fumes been?
Well, anything that burns tends to be toxic to a certain degree, obviously. What would concern us in a scrapyard is that we don't know what bits and pieces that might be there, including, for example, old cylinders, disused gas cylinders. These could present a problem to the fire brigade, not to the public.
Although there was no need for extra personnel at the scene, 10 off-duty firemen were recalled to cover those attending the incident. The major injuries have been reported, although a few people had to be treated for smoke inhalation. Damages to surrounding buildings have been minimal, as flames were confined within the scrapyard itself.
It's been surrounded completely by hoses, by water lines, and by foam that's been used from the Defence Fire Service appliances. It's just a question of cooling down and damping down. These type of fires at the scrapyard tend to be quite long-drawn because they are deep-seated. It might mean we'll take some time to turn over the debris and the scrap material in order to get to the very heart of the fire. So it will take us at least some time before we can say that this fire is completely under control. It does not mean that it is out of control. It is just that the terminology that we use, we do not say that the fire is completely under control until we know that all the resources we have applied to it are the ones needed to put that fire out safely and efficiently.
Due to the smoke and fumes emanating from the fire itself, the Royal Gibraltar Police sealed off the area and stopped all traffic down Devil's Tower Road, evacuating the residents of nearby buildings and housing them at the Garrison Gymnasium. The RGP's main concern to keep the area safe.
Been done by recalling people down to this particular area and sealing off Devil's Tower Road from traffic and making sure that the route for the emergency vehicles, especially the big fire engines from RAF, have easy access in and out. The smoke was very intense at the start and soon after, and the immediate buildings were evacuated for safety reasons.
Well, from the RGP's point of view, are you happy with the way the situation has been controlled?
As happy as one can be, yes. Fortunately, there's been no injuries. We are allowing people to go about their daily routine as much as possible. There's been disruption, but we're trying to minimize this to contain the situation.
Well, we are quite satisfied that our procedures have come into play, and also the help of the RGP in coordinating any question of making people sure that they do not come near the fire, controlling the public, etc. The only problem that we've been faced with is a slight problem of lack of water supplies. Not lack of them, but not completely sufficient to what we need for this type of large fire.
Although the fire was kept under control early on in the afternoon, dampening operations and the turning over of debris and scrap continue. A long-drawn procedure expected to run throughout the night.
The government has made clear it will not participate in dialogue, the outcome of which is predetermined to result in any measure of Spanish sovereignty over Gibraltar. It therefore says it follows that there is no prospect of it taking part in any dialogue under Jack Straw's Westminster Declaration, as this would now not be on an open agenda basis. The government says that since 1996 it has maintained the well-known position of willingness to take part in open agenda dialogue as long as its conditions were met. It adds that the second of these, that no agreements be struck above the head of the government, has not been met, and that notwithstanding this, Mr. Straw and Mr. Hayne continue to assert that they cannot understand Gibraltar's absence from talks. They insist the government's conditions have been met, and Gibraltar has now sent extensive evidence to the Foreign Affairs Committee to demonstrate the contrary. The government has reiterated that people, especially the elderly, need not be worried that joint sovereignty will become a reality. It says there is no prospect of this happening unless Gibraltar votes for it in a referendum, and that no one should worry about its actual implementation. Number 6 says the point about Jack Straw's declaration is that it is tantamount to a denial of our right to self-determination and considerably strengthens Spain's hand internationally by legitimizing a claim, as well as being a violation of our political rights and wishes as a people. The government condemns Jack Straw's Westminster Declaration, which it says has happened despite the plea by the whole of Gibraltar at the 18th of March demonstration against joint sovereignty. It is currently engaged in extensive consultations and will be making a formal statement of its intended action next week. It says it's not acceptable to allow the matter to rest on the basis of Mr. Straw's declaration. The opposition is calling on the people of Gibraltar to ignore the request by the Governor David Dury to suggest ways in which the proposed Anglo-Spanish agreement over the rock could be improved, leading to a solution acceptable to all sides. The Governor issued his appeal on Friday following the common statement by Foreign Secretary Jack Straw, in which he stated publicly that Britain was willing to share sovereignty over Gibraltar, including what he described as the disputed territory of the Isthmus. The GSLP Liberals consider that instead of doing what Mr. Dury suggests, the Gibraltarians should support the policy of the House of Assembly, which is to reject any proposed Anglo-Spanish declaration containing in principle sovereignty concessions. The opposition considers that it's inconsistent for the Governor, who is responsible for upholding allegiance to the British Crown and defending British sovereignty, to be urging people to consider a possible deal in which allegiance to the British Crown would be replaced by allegiance to both the British and Spanish crowns in a sharing of sovereignty. The GSLP and GLP describe the Governor's statement as a serious error of judgment, which will cause people to doubt whether he can adequately represent to the British government the wishes of the people of Gibraltar, given that he has patently acted as the Foreign Office's spokesman on the rock. The opposition says the statement also puts in doubt how the Governor can be considered to form part of the Gibraltar government, which is the technical constitutional position, when, as part of the government, he should be covered by collective responsibility. According to the GSLP Liberals, if any other member of the Gibraltar Council had made the public statement the Governor made last week, his position would become totally untenable. The Voice of Gibraltar group has again asked for the Governor's resignation. It has thanked the people of Gibraltar for their support at the noisy demonstration held outside the convent, and has also voiced its appreciation for the members of the House of Assembly who expressed their solidarity.
The group, who has targeted Ministry of Defence sites for protests as a direct result of Jack Straw's policy statement in Commons, has also taken issue with the Governor's statement. It describes as disgraceful that the Governor should ask Gibraltarians to provide fresh ideas for the joint sovereignty deal. The group says it's therefore not surprised that he was jeered at Saturday's changing of the guard ceremony, which also saw tourists expressing their disapproval. It believes such interference between the people of Gibraltar and its elected government is a deliberate attempt at creating division among the local population. The VOGG again accuses the Governor of conduct unbecoming his office and calls on him to examine his conscience, apologise to Gibraltarians and resign forthwith. It also calls on Gibraltarians to make its public relations walkabouts a nightmare by boycotting all functions organised by the convent, desist from inviting him to local events, and removing his patronage from clubs and associations. The Voice of Gibraltar group says the measures may appear drastic to some, but believes the situation has reached rock bottom and that people must once and for all show their conviction, dignity and strength of unity in ostracising Buana and pushing ahead with their political aspirations.
Meanwhile, the Golden Hind Gibraltar Association has written again to Europe Minister Peter Hain, warning him that he ignores the bonds uniting Gibraltar and the UK at his peril. Chairman Kevin Kelway informs Mr Hain that the British government's intention to share sovereignty of the rock with Spain will be fiercely opposed in Britain. He says the ordinary British people feel passionate about Gibraltar, and his group's Plymouth campaign is about to be extended to other cities and towns across the UK. Mr Kelway also reveals that his association will be holding a public debate in Plymouth in September to consider the future of Gibraltar and its possible integration with the UK. He invites Mr Hain to attend in order to explain British government policy over the rock, and says they will also be inviting a representative of Spain and political leaders from across the UK. The Golden Hind Gibraltar Association is also hopeful that the Chief Minister Peter Caruana and other political and grassroots organisations in Gibraltar will attend the debate. The former chairman of the British Gibraltar Group in Parliament, Sir Albert Macquarie, has written a passionate letter in support of Gibraltar. Sir Albert tells the Herald that shared sovereignty must be resisted with all the power that can be mustered, not only by the people of Gibraltar, but the many thousands of people throughout the United Kingdom and abroad who want Gibraltar to remain wholly British. He writes that it was his pleasure to oppose the conversion of the status of the Gibraltarians from British citizens to dependent territory citizens when the Tory Home Secretary, the late Willie Whitelaw, attempted this in 1981. Albert Macquarie says the battle was won then, with the British government now attempting to sell the Gibraltarians down the river regardless of the preamble to the Constitution. As a freeman of the city of Gibraltar, he tells the Herald a referendum should now be held as an overwhelming victory is certain. He vows to vote no and stand shoulder to shoulder with the people of Gibraltar. Sir Albert says that with friends such as Lindsay Hoyle and Gerald Kaufman backing the No campaign, the British government would have to reconsider its position at once. He concludes by saying the people of Gibraltar want friendly relations with the Spanish people, but that they will not be put down by Jack Boot Straw or anyone else. He says the Foreign Secretary is obviously not aware of the depth of feeling among those who love Gibraltar, nor does he care as long as he thinks he can dictate the position. Sir Albert Macquarie asks Jack Straw to think again, as he will not win this one any more than Willie Whitelaw did in 1981. The opposition has expressed concern that social cases awaiting a government flat allocation are destined to suffer their plight throughout the summer. It describes this as a totally unacceptable state of affairs. The Alliance says an individual has been told by the Housing Department that the committee that has to review his case, the Social Advisory Committee, will not now meet until September. It says the committee is supposed to be dealing with housing applicants who are either socially recommended or classified as homeless. The Alliance says these individuals can't wait to have their case considered after the summer, as they are in need of attention now, and no proper mechanism exists to deal with many genuine cases of this nature.
During the budget debate last month, the opposition spokesman for housing, Reggie Valerino, told Housing Minister Jaime Neto that something had to be done for those who genuinely became homeless, and he asked that an effective mechanism that offered immediate remedy be put in place. The Alliance believes this has not only fallen on deaf ears, but on top of it, the minister seems content to close shop for the summer and leave these people in limbo. It believes this small number of applicants can only hope for a pre-war dwelling, which is often in a very bad state of repair. Yet they will take it because they have nothing else and cannot afford private accommodation. The opposition condemns what it describes as the minister's careless attitude and calls on the government to either reconvene the committee immediately or deal with these cases in a manner which recognizes the urgency involved. It further asks that people in this category be dealt with the dignity they deserve.
The La Línea City Council has acknowledged that a large number of Spaniards cross the frontier on a daily basis in order to work in Gibraltar. A special office that was set up to deal with requests for information from Spanish nationals employed on the ROC was visited by 73 people and resolved 172 inquiries. According to the La Línea authorities, around 4,000 Spaniards work in Gibraltar. It was for this reason that the Office for Cross-Border Workers was set up in March 2001, with its popularity growing. Among its objectives are the drawing up of a census to establish precisely how many Spanish nationals are employed here, and the creation of a mechanism to make it easier for Spaniards to obtain a job in Gibraltar. Meanwhile, the municipal authorities in La Línea are hoping to organise a seminar on cross-frontier workers for the 18th and 19th of October. We'll bring you more of today's local stories when Newswatch returns in a couple of minutes. Among the items after the break, a housing project in Gibraltar's South District is launched. Stay with us.